Okay, you're live. Thank you.
Good evening, and I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Open Space, Land Acquisition, and Farmland Preservation Committee for Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. With that, I'd like to take a motion if there approval of the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from
Do I
the,
have a second?
Yep, I'll second.
All in favor? Any discussion? Any discussion?
I have some
Okay,
correct-
all in favor?
Wait, I want to make corrections before we approve.
Very good.
I have a corrections on page 2,
Yep,
second paragraph. Next to the last line, it says he noted that they'll have to wait for remedial action plan and the grating, GRAT, and that should be grading design. In the next paragraph, towards the bottom, it says Brian Clemens asked if the town owns Clotter Farm yet. I don't know what that means. That doesn't make sense. Clotter Farm is where we're getting the building from, right? Is anybody looking at the minute?
Calder Farm is the builder, yeah, the builder.
Well,
Yeah,
it said Brian asked if the town owns Clotter Farm yet. That doesn't make sense. We don't have the desire to
Maybe.
own.
We'll have Daniel go back through the recording.
I think I
Okay.
said
Possibly
hired.
hired. Yeah, hired sounds right.
Oh, okay. And then on page 3, the top paragraph, second line, Sandy Kelly asked Fran Whalen asked if the farming parcels, we don't need that asked after Fran Whalen. Sandy Kelly asked Fran Whalen if the farming parcels. And the last one, under adjournment, the first line, it says Counselor Christopher, either Counselor Christopher Duff or Counselor Duff, but not Counselor Christopher. And that's all. Thank you very much.
As long as you say it
Perfect.
nice,
Thank
I'll
you,
answer
Sandy.
anything.
Thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome.
All right, with those amendments, do we, all in favor? Approving with those, good. All right, minutes passed with those changes. There is no public in the queue for comment tonight, although public should know that they are welcome and they have 2 minutes to speak apiece, roughly speaking. And that all they have to do is email publicmeetings@rockyhillct.gov for their credentials and instructions how to join. Moving on to discussion, town farm update. And I turn the floor over to Ray Carpentino.
Okay, number A, parcel B cleanout. I talked to 83, John Vassell. He had two illnesses in his family. His son, who is actually doing work on the farm, he was ill for a week or more actually, and in addition, been failure, and then the weather. So he has apologized profusely and has guaranteed us that he will be finishing up that project. Hopefully, what's today? Well, by the end of the month, weather permitting, of course.
You should get good weather.
I'm going on to number B, or item B, brownfield grant status. The final administrative and financial plan document that the state requires us to have them review has been submitted back to DECD. It was a number of different back and forth over the past couple of months. So that was submitted along with the request to waive the Zuvik LEP bid requirements. And also Zuvik's final proposal was submitted to DECD and they have no issues with it. So hopefully we'll hear back from them very soon, and then we will get back an assistance agreement which the town manager will sign and send back, and then we wait for the state to sign, and then we can get Zuvik on site immediately thereafter. Any questions about that? No, good.
Just rough,
Oh,
rough
well-
timeline. Do you have a rough timeline for those steps that you laid out?
No. We're at the mercy. When they get to it, hopefully within a month, within a few weeks, we don't know. It depends on their load, who's working and who isn't.
So are we for this, the state is the final signature, right, Ray? So
Yeah.
it's back and forth, and then state sign off, and that's not contingent on any session being in.
No, not at all.
That just goes
No.
to the office and they administratively do it, so.
Right. Building demolition and abatement, again, we can't start anything until we get final approval from the state. However, Zuvik has indicated that we can start immediately. We don't have to wait for them to do additional testing. We don't have to do environmental remediation for the soil. So that will be our very first course of action. They'll put a bid out to bid for demolition and abatement and get that going hopefully before the snow flies. I had contacted a number of companies who had expressed interest in going through the house and removing junk, garbage, other things they might find of interest. They have, 3 of them have gotten back to me saying, no, we're not interested. We wanted the farm equipment, which a lot wanted. And we have a scheduled appointment with another individual who would like to go through and see if he could find anything worth of value. At that point, the demolition, we're proposing that the demolition contractor either clean out the house and keep what they want, or they do everything. It would be up to that contractor at this point. We have to get things moving along. Item D, land use.
Sorry,
Yukon.
right. The building demolition abatement, does that include all the structures? Or is it primarily the house? And because there's also, like the chemical shed and that's
Yeah,
pretty much it, right? That's all part of the same package?
All the structures, the outbuildings, the house, that little shed, chemical shed.
Thanks.
As I mentioned last month, Yukon is interested in land for the farm. They have provided us with a memorandum of understanding, which you have in your packet. I spoke to Peter Minuti. He's the architect up at Yukon in this program, and he's available for our next meeting. Hopefully, it'd be really nice if we can do it in person, but he'll be available to the program and the whole process in detail with us. They're ready to go. We just have to go through the process, inform the subcommittee, and then maybe tonight the subcommittee could just recommend it back to John, I believe the town council or finance committee, one of the two, recommend it for approval.
So UConn will be guest speaking at the next land use meeting?
Yes.
Hopefully, yeah, okay, so we'll have them in to go over that. This is where we begin to try to maybe lay out the puzzle, right? Where the trails would best be suited, where the community garden and how big, right?
Exactly.
Putting all the driveway, the parking lot, the barn itself, actually, situating it properly. So this is where we start, I guess, to put some color on the canvas.
That's it exactly.
And
Yeah.
any questions on that?
I have a question.
Sandy, yeah?
Thank you. Ray, with the Yukon study, even though the buildings are still up, that doesn't hamper their view of the property and thinking of what would go where. Is it because obviously those buildings are going to be there for a while yet? That won't hamper them at all?
No, I provided them with every bit of information we have. They're fully aware of the site, what we've done, what our plans are. And also I provide them with the environmental assessments, so they're fully aware of what we want. And no, that will not hamper anything they want to do. And we will make sure that they incorporate the Sandy Kelly patios. Plan.
Does that mean I have to bring the coffee every day for everybody?
Every day, yeah.
It's an idea.
Ray, when do they consider fall kickoff? Because if we wait till the next meeting, then that basically fall kickoff would be November 1st.
Yeah. I mean, if the subcommittee would give it the go tonight, then we can have them coming in and starting doing all the background and data gathering they need to do. So they'll actually have a better understanding when they come talk to the subcommittee.
So if you notice the report that UConn gave that Ray included in the package, the total cost is $10,000. And that is in, I guess John can speak to that, but that's within, his authority to sign and to execute on behalf of the town. I'm not really on the finance committee, Chris, maybe where the money what part of the budget that would come from. John could tell us, but I think the committee wants to give this back to the town manager to sign and say, sign it.
What we're doing is looking for the committee to recommend this to the town council.
Recommend
put
it
on the consent agenda, and we still have at least $10,000 left in our referendum money that could cover the first $5,000 payment to get this thing rolling. But again, we're coming into changing of the seasons and so on, that if we get town council approval on Monday, then we can sign this off on Tuesday and get moving on it, and then have them present what they've come across at the October land acquisition meeting.
So any more questions regarding that actual $10,000 proposal, that money to be spent to do the planning? We want to recommend, we'll take a little vote here and recommend it back to consent agenda. Approve it to consent agenda.
I think it makes sense. It's something we're going to want to talk about. So as long as you give it in the farmland report, I think that should be fine. It's certainly a big interest of folks in town. So we can move it to the consent agenda and note that it'll be paid under the from the remainder of funds in the contingency of the referendum. And then I'm sure Ed, you can just talk about it in your report. I guess probably at the next meeting, they would come and talk about the overall process. I wouldn't imagine that they would be able to complete all of this work.
No.
Yeah. So I think the earlier we can get them started, the closer that we can get this thing wrapped up. So doing it tonight, I think makes a lot of sense, or at least showing that we look favorably upon it, referring it to council tonight makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would think we would get input on the plan. In other words, they would come to us and maybe we would kind of, see what they're suggesting, and then make any suggested alterations back and forth before we accept it and present it to council again.
I have a question on the process. If they come and present all this, and then we have to wait for the next council meeting, and then the council approves it, and then that pushes us back a month to a start date, wouldn't it be more expedient? I'm not a voting member here, but I can't imagine anybody of us sitting here would say no if we voted right now. So shouldn't we vote to suggest it to the council, approve it from this subcommittee, so that we've got that piece of the puzzle done? Does that make sense? So we, once they come and if it all makes sense, I mean, we're not signing a document yet, but at least if we get the town council's approval, aren't we one step closer?
Well, actually, I think that's what we just discussed. The town subcommittee recommend consent agenda to the town council. Town council hopefully says yes. John signs a contract. They start, but they'll be in and out of this subcommittee meetings a few times as the planning process proceeds. The first meeting will be an introduction. What's on your mind? What would you like to see? What's the overall vision? And they want input. This is a regular, same process as the plan of conservation and development. They want input from the committee, input from the community. They put plans together. They come back with a draft plan. They get more input. They go back. It's going to be quite a few months process to develop this overall.
Okay. I must have misunderstood Ed. I thought the suggestion was to get them here to talk to us and then forward it to the council. But we're going to do the council step now.
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
We're,
apologize.
we're approving the go ahead to hire them, but
Wonderful.
what's on the plan, we want a little more say.
Oh, absolutely. They know
Oh,
that.
sure.
They know.
Great.
Brian, did you have a comment?
No, I agree. It's just, we should be moving along with this, go to the council.
All right.
Hmm.
Nothing, John, nothing? John, okay, all right. Okay, so then we'll just do a quick, vote, motion. Yeah, do I have a motion to move this to the consent agenda for council?
Make a motion, move this item to the consent agenda.
Do I have a
I'll
second?
second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Great, thank you.
Beautiful.
And item E,
Item E, 1090 Maple Street property. I believe John was going to do white paper on this.
Yes, only one more verse on this is Ed than me, but it goes back to when the ambulance has been talking about having their own freestanding building because there's not enough room for them in the fire department on 3050 Main Street. We found that there's some state property off of the Maple Street or Route 3 that was years ago going to be part of the I-291 project that did not come to fruition. So the town contacted State Rep Jerry Wood, and this property was put into a bill associated with state property being transferred over to towns and cities and so on. It did go to the basically the landowner, which is DOT. They didn't want to give up the full 7.5 acres. They wanted to save some, I guess, related to the current 91 highway. So it wasn't approved, but they're willing to transfer the property over to the town, but not at the full 7.5 acres. So as of right now, DOT is doing a survey and creating a map, as well as going to do an appraisal and come back to the town with a price or whatever it might be for them to transfer it over to the town. Originally this started in public safety because it was related to the ambulance, but because we're sort of put on a waiting period till DOT gets ready, we transferred it over to land acquisition. So land acquisition will be monitoring this to see what the costs would be associated to acquire this from the state and whether it's worthwhile, because it is in between two residential areas, and being part of the 291 project, it's been untouched for years, so it's very overgrown with trees and vegetation and so on. So it's not open space or anything. If you're going to do anything, you have to go in and cut down some trees. And whether the town wants to take over responsibility for the property or leave it with the state. So I guess we're waiting to see what DOT is going to propose to the town.
Any
Had a-
questions?
Yeah, just, so I guess one of the questions would be just like jurisdiction, like we're not just the land acquisition, we're the open space land acquisition. So I'm not sure for this committee, and I think the intention was after the referendum got formed many years ago was to set up a committee, and I could be wrong, to manage and acquire open space on behalf of the town that wouldn't be developed. I mean, this seems like a pretty big development project that, we'd want to make sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's on that one. I think you're right, where this is a really densely packed neighborhood, and we certainly would want to hear from the residents if they wanted an ambulance depot, you know, in the middle of their neighborhood on a street that has a lot of traffic problems. There's also questions about how close it is to Weathersfield versus serving the people of Rocky Hill. I mean, those are public safety things, but you know, just because we might be able to get this property, it seems like it's its own question, you know, that as far as how it would be used, and of course all the expense related to that. So I guess we just want to make sure we're talking about it in the right committee, but then also if we were going to move forward with it, we absolutely need the input of the neighbors, because that could be, you know, a really disruptive thing, plus any costs associated with it. I guess there's no harm in just monitoring it to see what those, you know, what the DOT is even proposing.
Any other questions, comments? John and Brian, no? Yeah, Chris, the only reason why we're looking at it here is because it was initiated by ambulance and the state rep and the town. And the ambulance emergency has changed leadership at this point. They're not looking at this property as of the last public safety meeting. So it had no bearing for public safety. So in order to continue to monitor the open space, the greenway, we're making this committee aware of the fact that it might be offered to the town for $1 in its best case scenario, but it sounds like the DOT is reevaluating their options, and it may just be too much money. They may be looking to sell it to a developer instead. So, but we'll know first.
Okay,
All right,
so
John? I'm sorry, John Mayer?
no, I'm just saying, yeah, that's all it is as you mentioned, that we'll monitor this to see what it comes back at, and see what the attitude of the town is going forward with this property.
Very
Turn
good.
it back to Ray and his executive session.
Yeah, okay.
All right, John Murphy, how do we do executive session?
I will give control to Ed, and then I will leave.
So I will call for a motion to go into executive session.
I have to call for a motion for to join into executive session regarding the negotiation strategy for potential land acquisition, mayor, town manager, and economic developer director.
Do I have a
Second.
second? Okay,
Second.
great. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of executive session? All right, we are in executive session.
And one moment, please, and we won't come back. I'm just going to leave. Let me stop all the recording and everything.